Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett, Return of the Mandalorian. And this is my favorite episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which is kind of awkward since it is mainly exclusively focusing on Din, the Mandalorian. Um, Not to say that I have anything really against Boba Fett. uh, I actually really like and think that the character's got a lot of potential. I just think that they need to do a kind of better job doing their balancing act that they were doing with the Tusken Raider parts and the present day parts. Mainly with the present day parts. I really like the stuff of him kind of learning with the Tusken Raiders, kind of getting into his own kind of groove and all that. But this was a really good episode. I really liked it because it delved into certain things within the Mandalorian culture. Got us kind of up to speed of what Din's been doing. Well, not really doing, but where he is right now, and kind of linking him up with what's going on with Boba Fett's war against the Pike Syndicate. So, we get a pretty cool and effective opening where we open on like this meat kind of market kind of place, and Din just comes in, and everybody's kind of looking at him, is like, "What the hell's going on?" And of course, he's there for a bounty, and the dude's like, "Hey, not them," and he of course pulls out the tracker. He's like, "Yeah, it's you." It's like he tries to warn off the rest of the people there. He's like, "Listen, I'm just here for him, and I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold." Then he gets into a fight that's pretty kind of nasty. First, dude kind of like bites his hand, and he can't really get at his blaster, and then he starts like doing some smaller kind of fighting and everything, and then he starts utilizing the dark saber, and we see that he is not as well versed with it yet. So he's definitely going to need some more training with it because he's like taking some people out. He's having a hard time utilizing it as effectively as he should. He even burns his leg that he has to take care of later. And it's not to show that he is stupid or that, like, well, it's not to show that he's stupid. He understands the lethality of this weapon. It's just he is not that trained for it. Yeah, he's strong and he could potentially use it at some point, but we do get some in-lore kind of stuff and actually plot development for it after this. But we see him like taking out some people, and then the one dude just tried to make a break for it. He stabs him and then like uses the dark saber to like do a finishing thing. So he comes out with the head in the bag. We see the rest of the employees from the place pretty much surrounding him. He's like, "Listen, I was just here for the bounty. I'm sorry that like I killed your boss, but you're welcome to anything else left in there. Just let me be." And most of them leave him be, and he just walks out. And it's like, wow. That was like one of the best action scenes that I'd seen in this series, at least in my opinion. And it was a really good action scene. It was very easy to follow the flow of the action and see where everything's going, and it didn't like the choreography was so on point. It didn't feel like uh, anybody was like, it felt like a real kind of fight going on between Din and everybody going on. I was like, wow, that was a really good action scene to start this off with. So then we see that he is in a kind of Halo-esque ring world kind of place, and I'm like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. We don't get, at least I didn't see what it was called. I'm probably going to watch it again later because I enjoyed it so much. But he's like walking through, and it's really cool to see this ring-like structure and how it kind of operates because we see some light cycling through and through, so it's kind of hard to tell day nighttime cycle. We see him like walking through, just carrying, he's limping around, he's got this head in a bag, he gets into this like elevator kind of thing, and this person's like looking at him like, "Oh Jesus, I'm gonna have to deal with this." But they look at him, he's like, "What?" And he doesn't ask them what, but he kind of looks at them and they're like, "Nope, nope, okay." And then he gets off. He gets to his bounty contact. He's like, "I got this." He's like, "Hey, stay with us." Peace. He's like, "I need the information. Just give me the information." It's crazy. It's like, "Yeah, but we want you to do this other kind of thing." It's like, "Listen, that dude's got a bounty on him. I could just fucking like leave and like give info and shit like that." It's like, "All right, fine. Here's your stuff." It gives him a location on the place to go to, and he goes off on his way. And I'm thinking, okay, he must be looking for like remnants of the Mando clan that he would like seen on Navarro, and that's pretty much what it is. He goes down. He's still, of course, kind of wounded, so he's kind of like, it's really kind of dangerous because it's kind of got like a Bespin kind of thing to it, of like he's going down like underneath this ring, and like if he makes one false step, he's like gonna fall down into space. So he gets there, and we see the armor and the kind of beefy tanky dude, who we learn later is linked to like the creator of the well, not who's linked to the Darksaber. Let me see. Yeah, it was like a pivotal figure who like was connected to the Darksaber, and she's like, "All right, cool. How's it going?" He's like, "Yeah, I returned." She of course does get him medical attention for his leg, and he's like, "Yeah, I returned him, and I also got this." And she's like, "Oh, the Darksaber." And then we get, of course, some more. She's like, talking about how the Empire was barely lasted 30 years, and that the Mandalorian Empire has lasted thousands, and that everything going on with the Darksaber lore-wise of how it was made by someone who was a Jedi and a Mandalorian, the only one that had been able to do that so far at that point, and then also after. It's like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Granted, I don't know if they're going to be teasing that Din it will eventually become a Jedi to like do that again. I just think that that's really kind of interesting lore that they're going for with the Darksaber. Now, granted, this is kind of more kind of new information for me since I have not watched like the Clone Wars series, so it's kind of cool that it is revealed in this way, because granted, even though it does feel kind of info dumpy, it's at least done in a kind of interesting manner, as she's like mucking around. Like, she's not like going nuts mucking around, but like looking at it, seeing what can be done with it. She asks if he won it in honorable combat, all that. Then of course is utilizing the saber. She's kind of trying to train him to use it, but of course she understands that there's a disconnect. He's got the strength of body for it, but his mind is elsewhere, of course, thinking of Grogu. And we see that kind of like playing out. We see him bringing up Bo-Katan and how she wanted the saber and that she didn't win it in combat, so that's leading to the lore that of course it would only end in ruin. Talking about how their clan had survived the fall of Mandalore by hiding on the moon of Concordia, and that they have to follow their tenets in the old ways because the people of Mandalore and other places didn't follow their Mando creed of the helmets and all that kind of stuff and what the way is. And we see that kind of playing out as they're doing all this kind of stuff. She, of course, sees the Beskar spear and is like, that's a danger to Mandalorians because it can pierce them and everything. So, of course, they melt it down. They set up the kind of forge that she's got, and he's like, how about we make it into something for foundlings? And he asks to make it into something for Grogu. And she at first is like, but he has been returned to his people. But, of course, he still thinks of Grogu very much like a son. And she's like, all right, let's make something for him. And she presents the little gift. Well, we see that the other guy who is linked to the whole kind of Darksaber wants to challenge Din for it. And, of course, they have their fight, and he is still not at the point where he is in tune enough to utilize the Darksaber correctly, but that doesn't mean he doesn't win this fight, because they take off their jetpacks, and the other dude's got like this small little energy shield and like a vibro blade, and starts going at Din, but they're able to kind of like work into it such a way that like Din's able to still come out on top. He's like, screw this shit. And of course the armor then starts running through what's going on, of course, with the Creed. And she asks if he's if the dude who challenged him had ever revealed his face to anyone, and he says no, and of course the Mando says yes. There's a tense moment, but she's like, well, now you're an apostate. You've gone against the Creed, you've broken it, and go. And that the only way to like get past that is to go into the waters of the mines of Mandalore. But of course, that has been mucked up by the Empire and all that, and would be kind of harder to get to. So he, of course, still has the Darksaber. They kind of turn their backs on him, and he kind of walks off. It's like, yeah, I get having their kind of way, but he was, well, I don't know if he thought it counted with the assassin droid, but he, of course, revealed his face to Grogu and the rest of the people on there, and I think he still made the right choice on that. He was saying goodbye to Grogu, this charge that he has had, this pretty much son of his, and yeah, it kind of hurts that like the people that have molded him and taken care of him for most of his life are like, yeah, go away. It's like, we'll have to see how this kind of works out. If his main plan is to go and do that and eventually get in tune with the Darksaber to unite Mandalore and do stuff with that. So we'll see how that kind of lays out as everything keeps going on. Now, granted, this won't be that this is more to lay groundwork for the Mandalorian Season 3, I believe. Now, granted, that does kind of suck, because I'm always kind of iffy on that kind of thing. Granted, I do like this episode, and I like what it's setting up, but it would be kind of better if this was done in its own series, because it's taking away valuable time that could be utilized for Boba Fett. And I think it really needs that time. So, we see that Din decides to go to Tatooine, and we get a little kind of funny bit where the security droid's like, listen, just put your shit in here, and we'll get this through. He's like, fine, but I know everything in here, and it better be there. And we then see that he is on the flight there, and this little Rodanian kid is like, hey, and he doesn't wave back, but it's kind of cool to see that little kid acting like that. And of course the parents like, hey, stop kind of messing with that person. He gets off, and he then of course goes to the mechanic lady that we've been introduced to in The Mandalorian. She's like, oh, she's dealing with some real shit as a BD droid is getting attacked by some of the wildlife, and then she's tried to protect it, but then she gets kind of dragged down. But then of course Din pops up and shoots the thing. She's like, oh yeah, I called you because I got something that could replace the Razor Crest. And he's like, alright, cool, show it to me. He's got the money for it. That's why he was doing the bounty. And he goes, and she found an old Naboo starfighter, which is pretty cool. He's like, that's not a Razor Crest. And see, the thing is, I can understand where she's coming from. She's kind of building it up to like this old kind of antique car, pre-Empire, would be off the grid. And that does have some distinct advantages. You don't need a ring dock to have this shot into hyperspace. However, if Din wants to do his shit on his own, he would also need a place to like go to the bathroom, make food, hell, go to sleep if he wants to. You can't really do that in the starfighter. So I do know that this could potentially be kind of like a stopgap thing, but it was kind of cool. He's like, I don't know. And then we get this whole kind of thing as we find out that she used to date a Jawa, and that they like bring her shit, and she's like, yeah, I just give them a wish list. Almost kind of like a strange thing of like online shopping is like, hey, can you find these like speed mods and shit? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then of course as they're like tuning up and having this montage of like rebuilding this starfighter, which I didn't think would be that interesting, but it was kind of funny and kind of good to actually see some kind of character development, learning what his skills are with like building and maintaining like StarCraft, and him having kind of funny moments with certain droids and all that. And then the Jawas come and they found something. He's like, hey, yeah, cool, thanks. And then he like pays them, and she's like, why are you doing that? Now they're gonna want like they're gonna think I treat them bad and all this. Like, whatever. So they're like putting everything together and they're getting it all built up, and she's like, all right, go take her for a test drive. And we see him doing his stuff, going to Baker's Canyon and all that, and kind of mucking with it. He's like, ooh, this thing is kind of nice. It's kind of cool to see him going from like, I just wanted my Razor Crest, to, okay, there's distinct advantages of the Razor Crest, but this thing kind of slaps. This is pretty good. As he's like going through, goes up into the atmosphere, and then he's flying close to one of the vehicles, and we see the little kid looking out again, and he gives that cool guy nod. And I was like, okay, that was actually pretty cool. It's a small thing, but when you're a kid and you see somebody who you think is cool or you wanted to say hi to, and they're like awesome, and then they give you that acknowledgement, that's pretty fucking awesome. And it's a small kind of moment. It doesn't really add anything plot-wise, but it adds things character-wise. It shows that Din is not a hard-hearted kind of person and is like, okay, kids, they're okay. They're alright. And he gives that nod and everything. And then we see that the same kind of New Republic soldiers and X-Wingers stopping and be like, alright, what you doing? Of course, they want the transponder and stuff on. He's like, I was just test driving this thing, see how it was going on. I need to get back to Mos Eisley to kind of get everything worked out. And all right, cool. They're kind of close to it, but we see that it's one of the same people that was like chasing Din before. He's like, you sound really familiar, man. Dealing with like a Razor Crest or whatnot. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he of course flicks this button, and he gets shot off. And he's like, did he jump to hyperspace? What the hell is that? He's like, no, he just used his thrusters or whatnot. And he's like, do we report this? He's like, if you want to spend the rest of the day filing paperwork. And he's like, no, sir. And then just kind of buck off. And then he's coming back and he's like, all right, you got me. And it's kind of cool because sometimes when you do have a kind of working relationship with certain people, they might bring you something that you weren't kind of really thinking of, that you didn't really think you needed or kind of wanted, and then you just find that kind of thing that works out. And I do like that they put it more into a silver pattern that just works out for him with slight accents of yellow to show the kind of old Naboo color. So we'll see kind of how that works out. But he comes back, she's like, hey, listen, some weirdo was asking for you, so we initiated the security system, and we'll kind of see how that works out. But of course, it's Fennec Shand, and she's like, hey, Mando. And she's like, I thought you said that the security system was on. He's like, it's okay, cool. And then she kind of pops down pretty cool, like, it's like, hey, listen, wondering if you were kind of available. We're available to, we got pay and everything. He's like, hey, is it a bounty? He's like, nope, we got something coming up and we need muscle and everything. And he, of course, weighs it out, but he's like, you know what? This one's on the house. And it's, like, really cool. That show... It doesn't seem that big, but when you're a bounty hunter and you're doing a lot of stuff and transactions for people, when you're like, you know what, this one's on the house, that just goes to show, yeah, you helped me out with Grogu. I really appreciate that, and you're coming to ask me for help. You know what, I'm good to help you. It's just, I need you to wait a little bit so that way I can visit someone, of course, to visit Grogu. So we'll kind of see how that kind of works out, if we'll see Din visiting Grogu, or if we'll see him just pop in to Boba Fett's whole kind of spiel and how he's going to be integrated with Boba Fett's whole crew, with, of course, the Mod Squad and his angry gladiatorial Wookiee, his two Gamorrean guards, and, of course, Fennec Shand. And granted, that is a small force against the might of a criminal syndicate, but add into the effect that we now have the Mando on our side, and that if you do the right tactics, you can still take shit down. I mean, Boba Fett was able to frickin' muck with the Pike Syndicate with one of their trains with Tusken Raiders. So, it's just an all in how Boba Fett's going to go about this and how it's going to kind of work out. So, I really enjoyed this, even though this was, like, leading into, like, what could potentially be stuff going on for The Mandalorian Season 3. It's just, I really like the character development, the lore, and all the kind of crazy and kooky character stuff that was going on with this. So I really enjoyed this, and would have hoped to have seen more of this kind of stuff going on more thoroughly throughout the book of Boba Fett. Now granted, we do get that stuff more in the Tusken Raider aspects with Boba Fett getting onto there. I just wish more of it would be in the present day stuff. I've seen Boba Fett working with the Mod Squad people, doing some stuff with Chrysanthemum. Now, granted, they do a good job of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand's relationship. I do like that part. So we'll kind of have to see how this kind of shakes out. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.